happened this weekend. Billy Napier out at Florida. I think this is probably the worst kept secret
There's
of
going to be
everything.
a couple of gigs open in the state of Florida by the end of the week, I think.
Yeah, so that was going to be my other point is when is Florida State going to come open? I mean, Mike Norvell, look, you would think having a 13-0 season would kind of set you up for a couple of years. I think the problem that you're seeing is obviously South Florida went on a tear at the beginning of the year. And then Miami, I know they lost to Louisville, shout out Coach English and Coach Ellis over there. And Coach Brom, who, by the way, absolute ball coach. That dude is amazing. So not surprised. But you have Miami, who is essentially a national title, or was a national title contender, and you have a complete collapse of the program. You looked good. That Alabama win is slowly waning off. But Napier just can never figure it out.
Yeah.
And you're an offensive guy. You couldn't figure the offense out. The defense, I feel like he went through the greatest hits of Patrick Toney, didn't work. Austin Armstrong, didn't work. Now you have Ron Roberts. The defense is kind of stabilized, but you've never been able. You think about this. You had Lagway, who's the number one recruit. I think he was the number one recruit coming out. You had AR-15, Anthony Richardson, who, you had him for 1 year, but first round draft pick. And you just literally are 7-6 every year.
Yeah, which is unacceptable at Florida, which that's kind of the same story of every coach post Urban Meyer for Florida, unfortunately, but that is kind of the case. But it is getting interesting. I mean, the coaching carousel is kind of interesting at Florida and Arkansas. I think the number one candidate out there is James Franklin, who had his little conversation on college game day this weekend. But I think the hard part around hiring James Franklin is he's not good in big games. And if you're an SEC school like Florida or Arkansas, or if you're like Florida State, if you're trying to be up in that upper echelon, all your games are big games because you're in the SEC, or everything's going to feel like a big game because you're in the SEC. And speaking of those big games, Georgia, they get an upset over Ole Miss. A top 5 Ole Miss team takes a fall, and Notre Dame gets a crucial USC win, especially after losing the first 2 weeks of the season. Notre Dame needed this USC win. So probably the two biggest games of the weekend, Ole Miss, Georgia, and then Notre Dame, USC. How'd you feel about those two outcomes?
Yeah, Georgia is just I think what we're seeing, because I know that in the coaching community, Georgia is basically that Kirby Smart essentially took over for Nick Saban, and who do we watch? Who is the best defensive coordinator out there? Who does the most stuff on defense that's fun to study? It's been Smart. The problem that we're now seeing was that they were able to essentially get a stranglehold on all the defensive linemen in the United States, right? For about a 3 or 4 year stretch, they had basically an 8 deep of future first round draft picks. What year was it? Was it the 2021 draft? They set a record for the most defensive players drafted. And I think in first day too, from 1 to 3, I think that's where most of them were. You go now post NIL, now you have to keep up with the Joneses. Yes, they have the Joneses. They have the Franklins that they can dish out. The problem is, so do some of these other teams. I mean, Ohio State, you could argue, has had almost a better, if not a similar, defensive line prowess the past couple of years. So I think that's the fallout. Ole Miss, to me, is the Penn State of the SEC. It's you have talent everywhere. You look like you're going to be a world beater, and then you do the Ole Miss thing, and you can't finish a game where they were up. It looked like they were going to win, and then you have Georgia come back. So it's weird too. It's kind of like when Alabama made the flip to offense, and Saban was like, "Look, guys, we're probably going to give up 28, sometimes 30 points to some of these teams." Whereas Smart is now doing the same thing. So the Georgia fans are like, "Whoa, wait a second! We're winning games." 42-35, not 24-7, right? Yeah. So it's a little bit different. And like you mentioned too, the Irish get off the schneid. USC again has turned into kind of a program that cannot win big games, cannot do it at the level. And Lincoln Riley, the thing with him leaving Oklahoma, you're scared of the competition. You don't want the SEC. Now you're here. Now you're in the Big Ten, and it just continues to do that. So it's just that program should be better than it is.
Mm-hmm. All right. Now to the big boys. I guess we can talk Georgia Tech and Virginia real quick if you'd like.
I had it in the show notes just because the ACC to me right now is the most interesting conference. Just simply,
believe it or not, the ACC.
I know, wild, but you have so Georgia Tech and Virginia are not going to play each other. They're right now undefeated. I think Georgia Tech has the better opportunity to finish. I think Virginia at some point will stumble. SMU to me is going to be the dark horse. Not enough people are talking about Rhett Lashley and the job that he does here in the state of Texas, where I'm located, keeping home talent here. But if he's going to play Miami and he's going to play Louisville, if he can win both those games and they just have one loss on the record, this is a team that I think that Georgia Tech will see.
If Arkansas is serious, that's their next head coach. He's a former Razorback quarterback. Like, I mean, if they want to play real football, then Rhett Lashley is their next head coach.
100%.
All right, now we can talk about the big boys. We can go all the way back to Thursday night, which, how about it? Guys your age, Cody, getting out there slinging it. Joe Flacco, Aaron Rodgers, final score 33-31. I thought they were going to score as many points as many years old as they were, but
yes,
they didn't get there. I thought the funniest thing from last week was that Mike Tomlin was correctly pissed off that Joe Flacco got traded to the Cincinnati Bengals because that like, he's a guy that has played in that division for the majority of his career. The Browns are trading him within the division, kind of odd there. And so Mike Tomlin said, again, the loud part quietly, or excuse me, the quiet part loudly. And he's just like, this is real weird how this is working out. He was your week 1 starter. Now he's not. And then you see exactly why Mike Tomlin was as upset as he was.
Well, look, the Browns are like the heel of the NFL, but they're not even a good heel. They're just not good. Like, it's just like, why are you doing this? Like, it's just like, why are you doing this? Like, you're doing this for no reason. I mean, and for real, like, it's almost as if like they're like, look, we know we're terrible. We're just going to troll. Like, we're going to troll the whole entire division. The irony in this is like Dylan Gabriel is a good quarterback. I think too, accuracy translates to the NFL. And he was extremely accurate. In fact, one of the most accurate passers at the college level. And then he goes, and I don't think it's much of a surprise. Now, he doesn't have the physical stature that a lot of people want, but you can see why he is going to do it. If they can get the run game, this defense is already good. I think Schwartz has kind of figured out some of the missteps that happened last year. Now you have a competent offense. Now, do I think that this is a playoff team and they just go on like some 7-game tier? No, they have major issues on offense. I just think they can do what they did the other night of just surprise somebody of like, hey, we didn't play competent football. We're going to beat the bad teams. We're probably going to lose to the good teams. We're going to sit here probably at like 6-11, 7-10. But I think to your point with Flacco, it's like, you give the NFL essentially the very first 100% guaranteed contract in Deshaun Watson, which pissed off everybody because now they have to deal with that contract to completely reset the whole.
The next guy that's getting paid is Lamar Jackson. And so the Ravens have to deal with that.
Right. So you like set up like, again, it's the whole thing of like, they're just like, whatever. Sorry.
We're bad, but you guys are also going to suck.
Yeah. So, they've completely taken ownership that they're absolutely terrible and they're just trying to do that. But I think even with Flacco, like going back to the game, you mentioned it here, 23 targets for Chase. If you go and look at his next gen chart, it was outs, stops, crossers. What is he the best at? He is the yak king, man. Get him. He's basically a running back. People are always obsessed. I always thought it was really odd. People were always obsessed with Debo. And I was like, Jamar Chase is a much better guy, like tool. Like, yeah, Debo was interesting because it was like, I think this is the Maddenification of football, of where guys are like, oh, well, I can move him around and like basically fantasy. And like, you could be like, oh, Lamar's a running back. He's like the number 1 running back in the league when you move him to running back, right? Debo can play running back. He could do all this thing. But Chase is actually the one. And look, competent quarterback play, get the ball to the aliens. You got 2 of them. Yossi Bosch has essentially forgot how to catch, but the other 2 are aliens. Just get it to him. Get it to him.
Yeah. And I mean, that's again, it is that simple. Just get it to your guys. And those are probably
football is not hard. We overcomplicate it. Get the ball to your athletes. and find somebody who can sometimes just be the point guard. You don't have to be that much better. Like, just be the point guard and not make mistakes.
All right, to early Sunday morning, in London, the Jacksonville Jaguars drop a home game. That is a home game to them. 35-7. Matt Stafford out here cooking, 182 yards, 5 touchdowns. It's in the notes, and I wrote it in there, and it hurts me as a Trevor Lawrence guy, but there's genuinely something wrong with him, because Cohen has done some really nice things. They've turned over that defense. He's staying, and there's something there. They're cooking with peanut oil on that side. Now you got to play quarterback. They've got your weapons. The offensive line is improved. They've got you receivers out of the backfield. There's something wrong.
Yeah, and I really think it's the same problem with like Geno, right? Is that you have a mid ceiling and a mid floor, and really that floor can go in below average. So you end up with this kid that looks he is the prototypical. He's
he's 6'6". He's got a strong arm. He looks like
can run.
Yes.
Can make every throw.
And we saw it in college, like from day one. He won the national championship as a true freshman against Alabama, blew them out in the national championship. And I know we talk a lot about this is what you've done before you got to the NFL, but we also saw it in the NFL where you dragged the Jaguars team to the playoffs and gave the Chiefs a little bit of a worry on the way to their Super Bowl. So it's like, we've seen these things. What happened?
I just think at the end of the day, that killer instinct just is not there, that you just see. So what is the great separator in a lot of these? It's not necessarily intelligence. All these guys are intelligent. It's not necessarily arm strength, because as we know, throwing the ball deep right now in a too high world, that's just not going to get you a lot of completions. You're going to have to manufacture those with a run game. I think what it just comes down to is that there are certain times, and we saw this again, there are certain times where he clearly has the open read. It may not be perfect, and he just eats the ball. Or that's his main read. It's covered, but I'm supposed to throw the ball there, and I'm going to do my job, and I'm just going to whip it in there. And then it ends up being one of those where it's like an interception and it's a bonehead play. And I just think that at the end of the day, you are who you are. We've talked about this with Kyler Murray, which we'll get to here in a second. Yeah. You are who you are at this point in your career. I think that, look, this is also the problem is who are you going to turn to after? Because if you get rid of him or you move on from him, now you have you don't want him going to somebody like a Kevin O'Connell
having the Baker Mayfield trajectory, like literally the same exact thing, going to Kevin O'Connell, who might be in the quarterback market. Like, it is an interesting.
It's scary to me that Liam Cohen is having problems with him, because I think if you talk to coaches around the NFL, Liam Cohen is one of those. It's like, yeah, this guy's legit. He's done it at the college. He's done it at the NFL level. He's the McVay guy. He comes from the same tree. He understands it. I thought he said a lot of really telling things early on in the year about, hey, we got to take ownership. I need a leader. Sometimes you're just going to have to get it done, push through it. Some of these things early on, and I think that that's kind of reflective of that, is that you can have all the tools, but if it's just not there, it's just not there. That's that it factor. You can't define it. You either can do it or you can't. I think with him, it's just it's blah, which in the NFL is going to get you beat.
Exactly. And sometimes it's just the best way I can describe it is like a twinkle in the eye, where it's just like, oh, Patrick Mahomes is pissed off. He's going to throw a touchdown on this drive. Does not matter what happens. Doesn't even matter if the guy's open or if he's even going to catch the ball. He's going to throw a touchdown on this drive. And so looking at the NFC West as a whole, 49ers win on Sunday Night Football against the Falcons, who are up and down, to say the very least. They get the Bills win last week, and then they come out and look like the Falcons again on Sunday Night Football. And then we recording this on Monday, so the Seahawks haven't played yet. They play on Monday night. But per usual, the NFC West is going to be a battle. I didn't mention the Cardinals, particularly with Jacoby Brissett. As long as he's the starter, I think they almost beat Green Bay over the weekend. And so I think that per usual, the NFC West is going to be really interesting, but I think it's because the Rams are kind of at the top, but the Rams have this ability to kind of lose any type of game because they're the Rams for one reason or another. But then the 49ers kind of go back into that Rams position from last year where it's like we're kind of in pole positioning where we can either win this division from second or fall out of the race and not make the playoffs because of injuries or frankly, poor quarterback play or average quarterback play like they got from Mac Jones.
I don't think people realize, but the Rams have the number one defense in DVOA.
Yeah.
And then you watch them, and it's not hard to understand why.
They put up 35 without Puka.
And you have a defense now. And I think he's seeing it like, I mean, you watch Jared Verse. You talk about just an absolute ass whooper. Like, let's be honest. And then you put him with Fisk. Some of the other guys on that roster, too, are just kind of these unsung heroes. You know, Quentin Lake has turned into one of the better nickels in the NFL. The Darius Williams, who's playing zone at an advanced age of like 31, he's having a really good year. He's always been able to play. He just was hurt most of last year. Emmanuel Forbes, I feel like, fits perfectly into what Shula's trying to do as a field corner. He's long. They play a lot of zone. He's not asked to play just a ton of man coverage like he was playing, like they were asking him with the Commanders. So you have one of the better pass rushing defensive lines. You have adequate play finally at the linebacker position. You have two really good safeties. You have an extremely good nickel, and you have adequate cornerback play. What more do you want? You now have the number one defense. I think Chris Shula, especially with that name, look for him being the head coach, if not this offseason, but next year for sure.
Yeah, if it works, it works. I mean, what's Don Shula's kid? He wasn't a very good coach. Coach the Bengals.
Well, this is his son. I mean, even too, like sometimes it skips a generation. Look at McVay. His grandfather was basically the architect for the 49ers. He becomes one of the most, I think McVay will end up obviously a Hall of Fame football coach. Yeah. So I mean, it's just, sometimes it works like that. I mean, look, nepotism. People argue about it, but at the end of the day, like
it's also genetics too.
Well, and two, like it's kind of a 50-50. Like at the end of the day, you still have to produce, right? Like you can get it. Like, again, why do we talk about Rex Ryan and we don't necessarily talk about Rob Ryan? Well, Rex Ryan was obviously more talented, okay? But they were also coming from the Buddy Ryan tree. You know, same thing with Wade Phillips. Like Bum Phillips was one of the better defensive coaches of his era. Wade Phillips.
Phillips, yeah.
Right. So it just kind of comes down to it. So it's like, to me, I think like we get angry about it. But again, go talk to any coach. There's a lot of coaches that listen to this. There's a lot of coaches that follow me on Match Course. Your son, a lot of times a coach's kid ends up being one of your better football players. Why? Well, because they've just been around it.
It's as simple as the drive home. You just have a review with practice with your dad, like with your dad talking about the sport. So yeah, it is just that interesting. Now going from the NFC West to the NFC East, Philadelphia got some swagger back. Jalen Hurts was perfect on the day passer rating wise. Devontae Smith had a career day through the air. AJ Brown I had like 120 yards or something like that. But I think the reason why we're not going to see the Eagles of last year is because of yesterday. You need a perfect day from Jalen Hurts because Saquon is not 2024 Saquon. That's fine. That's whatever. You're not even going to get 1,200 yards from him. Like it's just not looking like it at this point unless he goes on a tear for the rest of the season. And I don't think that Jalen Hurts can be what he was against Minnesota every week. But we'll see. They got a pick six on defense. The problem with that also concerns me is that Carson Wentz kind of moved the ball on Vic Fangio's defense. We'll see where that kind of leads us, where they try to fix some things because the defense isn't what it was last year. And that's also why you need Jalen to be perfect. That's not going to happen week in and week out.
Yeah, well, the problem with the Fangio defense has always been if you don't have a pass rush, it really makes it difficult for the secondary to play. I think
Josh Sweat is an Arizona Cardinal now. Milton Williams is a New England Patriot now.
Right. So your guys, you had depth last year, you don't have depth this year, and so you're still getting some pressure. It's not the amount that they were getting. I also think too, look, Darius Slay is now playing for the Steelers.
Yes.
And so they have kind of had this revolving door. Keely Ringo, they said it on the broadcast last night. Keely Ringo has played more in the 7 games this year than he played in the 2 years combined prior. So like they're playing guys like that kind of tells you a little bit right there. Like they don't necessarily trust Ringo. Okay. They're trying to play Cooper DeJean as much as they can and just on the field, whether it's in base or whether it's not. I think everybody loves Quinton Mitchell. I think he's a lockdown boundary corner. He fits perfectly. Blankenship is perfect for that system. I think they're starting to play a little bit more of the rookie. So it's just one of those things. I think the secondary will get better as it goes on. But look, if you're playing with one corner and you don't want to necessarily play base all the time, you're going to get into trouble. And like we saw that. And I think too, in terms of Minnesota, we saw what we talked about at the beginning of this year. The cornerback position is going to struggle. Sure. Isaiah Rodgers had like 3 forced fumbles the other week. And that's fantastic. Or he had a pick and he had pick 6, whatever. That's fantastic. Okay. But now you're going up against the top receiver and they were able to kind of manipulate some situations to get him on. Both of the big plays by AJ Brown were on Isaiah Rodgers. So when you get him isolated, that's going to be an issue. And that was always been my concern is that's great. But what if you get isolated in a 3rd and medium and you're in man coverage and they got you isolated? How are you going to do that? There was another one. It was a really bizarre. I think one of the bigger plays, they motioned all the way across. Rodgers comes with it and Metellus called him off and then took Brown. And Brown goes for a touchdown. And you're just like, wait a second. Why are we making that switch? Because that's the other thing. As much love as Metellus gets, and he should, he is not great in coverage. And they don't want him playing deep safety, and they don't want him in man coverage. So you saw that yesterday. So it was kind of twofold. You saw what the issues are with the Eagles. You saw what the issues are with Minnesota. Carson Wentz, you saw why he's not a starter in the NFL yesterday. I think, and then the final thing here is with Saquon, and they rode that. I mean, they rode that pony all the way to the finish line last year, and they knew early on it was going to be a special season.
And I think what's shocking is that it's nothing though. He's not getting anything. Like he's getting like 50 yards a game and I know he may not be getting 125 yards a game, but like we haven't seen 100 yards out of Saquon yet this year. That's shocking. Not once.
I think that it's a little bit of a pitch count, and I think it's what we see. I think they're going to.
Bixby looked a little better than him early in that game.
Yeah, well, and
they just got him.
And I mentioned this too. Yeah, and I think you play Bigsby a little bit more, but I think I mentioned this too. Like they're going to have to Chiefs this thing just because of the injuries, just because of Hurts' kind of inability to really pass the ball downfield unless it's a perfect situation. But I think when we get into the playoffs, I think or later in the season, I think we're going to see Saquon really get turned on. At least I hope, because if they don't, I think it's going to be short-lived.
Yeah. It'll look a lot like 23 did for them when they went to the Super Bowl and then just looked really good for most of the season, but we all could tell, whatever.
Well, the NFC is better than it was then. Like when you look at it now,
within this division too.
Yes.
Because, I mean, we're going to talk about it here. These two teams that they just played, I mean, the Cowboys almost could beat them. Like, I mean, that's going to be –
They can outscore them for sure.
They can outscore them, and then they play the Commanders twice in 3 weeks, and in between that, they have the Bills in there. And so, I mean, it is going to be like a really weird shift for them, and maybe Jaden's just coming back from his injury. But speaking about Jaden's injury, Cowboys just let Dak throw. Dude, Dak's a top 5 quarterback, and I say that with a bullet, because I mean, without all of the, if he wasn't Dak Prescott and without the star on his helmet, we would think about him like we think about Baker Mayfield currently, because he is that good. He is a top 5 quarterback on his best day, and the Cowboys, when their best seasons in the last 5 or 6 have come when just Dak's healthy. That's all you need, and you're gonna win 10 games. And everybody's like, "What? No, it's Dak." No, it's Dak. He is that guy.
And it's never really been him that's like failed in these situations with the playoffs.
He's just gotten hurt, and then the playoffs happen. Like, sure, playoffs are a separate story, but also they're a separate story for Lamar Jackson. So let's talk about Dak Prescott. Give him all the respect he needs, because Sunday was a reason why he is one. I know he's the highest paid quarterback in the league, and that's a separate story, but he's deserving of a lot of that.
Well, and I think it makes it I think the unsung hero and somebody that is not getting talked about enough outside of Dallas is Ferguson, the tight end.
Yes,
when you have Pickens, who can go vertical. You have CD who's running the deep crossing stuff and is playing your basically your slot. And then you have Ferguson who's all the underneath stuff.
More nepotism. Barry Alvarez's kid or grandkid, excuse me.
It's like, come on, man. Like, who are you going to defend? They make it really difficult. And when Dak's 100% healthy, the O-line's playing relatively well. I think the story of the game, too, here is going to be the defense. Basically, Eberflus played more man. Here's my theory on this, because people are like, was no Diggs, does that mean a better defense? I think it showed you what we already knew, which is he's essentially a shell of himself. They were playing a lot of country 3 and a lot of cover 3 in zone, which is not his strength. They were having, and I mentioned this, I did a whole video on this at the beginning of the season of just the communication breakdown within the back end of like, none of these guys were communicating, then not doing it, or they weren't communicating and guys were just kind of playing without even talking to each other. I think without Diggs, what can Kaiir Elam do? He can play man coverage. He can get cooked, but he can at least play a little bit of man coverage. I think Deron Bland is better when you play him off and let him kind of hawk the ball down as well. We obviously know the safeties play better. Hooker is really good in the post. Donovan Wilson is really good when he's just playing man on a tight end. And I think that we saw that. I think the bigger tell here, though, is this is what we've been hearing since camp. That's why they took his money. He is not ready to play. I think they're going to probably move on from him at some point, just because, look, he's a shell of himself. He can't play. They were playing cover 3. I've mentioned
he wasn't that good when he was good.
No, and that's the other thing. He really had one good year where he was good. Same with Deron Bland. Now I think Bland has played a little bit more consistently. They got rid of Jordan Lewis, who I think he's playing. Look, I have to admit, I didn't think Jordan Lewis was going to be as good as he was. Over 30 years old, you pay him $30 million for 3 years, but he's proven me wrong. And and finally, let's talk about Jalen Daniels here. This is the sophomore slump, man.
And this is the worry that you had for him. This was his scouting profile. Incredibly athletic, great thrower of the ball. When he gets hurt, it's going to be early and often. And he's gotten hurt twice already, and we're 7 weeks through for most teams.
Well, NFL, it's the same reason why Vic kind of burned out a little bit. It's the same reason why Lamar.
Big dog league.
Well, and like Lamar's had to change into, and we've talked about
he's had to bulk up.
Yes, and be more of a quarterback in the sense of a traditional drop back. So why are drop back traditional quarterbacks still favored? Yes, you need that scramble ability. You need a guy like Mahomes. I don't think that's changing. Right. That is modern football now. But you don't want that guy carrying the ball all the time. It's the same thing with the Bills and Josh Allen. They're not going to have him carry the ball at volume until the playoffs, or if they need it. Yeah. So you're seeing that on a slight guy. This was predictable.
Yeah, skipping down here to that Green Bay Packers win over the Cardinals, and we just got done talking about the Cowboys defense. Imagine if they just had a pass rusher, like just a guy that can get you 3 sacks on any given Sunday. Like, I don't know, a Micah Parsons like they had last year in the previous 4 or 5 years or whatever it was. And I mean, we're saying it over and over again, Micah Parsons is worth every dime, every pick that you trade for him because of Sunday. Because when everything else isn't going well, when you have a quarterback like Jordan Love that is a little upsy downsy, then you probably should be beating the Cardinals. But hey, you're playing Jacoby Brissett. You never know what could happen. But you need a Micah Parsons who's going to come out there and be like, all right, hold on. All this nonsense, I got it. Sack. And we'll talk about the Chiefs here in a second. There was a 3rd and long where I was like, there's no way that the Chiefs are allowing the Raiders to score today. And I was like, yeah, Chris Jones, and he walks Jackson Powers Johnson back. Micah Parsons, Chris Jones, Myles Garrett, all of those guys, regardless of what position on the line or on the team that they are on the defensive front that they play, they're worth every penny because of what they can do in situations like that.
Yeah, and I really think this is another one of those interesting divisions where Chicago's won 4 straight. It looks like he's figured out, Ben Johnson's figured out the run game. I think everybody just is like, man, I can't believe Swift is just killing it. It's like, well, he's a perfect fit for kind of what Johnson needs right now, which is a speedy back. Just give him the ball, get some yardage. I think it opens up. It really takes a lot of pressure off of Caleb Williams. They're
And
figuring it
he's
out.
doing a lot better with that pressure lifted off of him too.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing is like, look, man, everybody's human. I mean, when it's just like, I felt like last year was basically like it really reminded me a lot of, in a sense of like the Arch Manning thing. Like everybody was basically like, okay, this is Patrick Mahomes 2.0. This is going to be our new Patrick Mahomes. He's going to come in. He's just going to blow the world up. He's going to make every play. Chicago's been waiting for a franchise quarterback forever. They finally got one. And then you start hearing things out of the camp. I really think too, like a lot of the things that you heard post-op, like it was basically like a hit piece on him. But I also think too, like in human nature, he's trying to deflect a lot of I mean, look, I don't know him personally. I just think that with him, you had so much pressure on you to be successful. He forced a lot of stuff. I think Ben Johnson's been able to pull that back and say, look, dude, put it on me. I got it. I'm the one that's going to be playing calling. You do what you need to do. I'm going to make sure that you're in situations. And we are not talking enough about how good this Lions offense is and how good Jared Goff is playing, just because they had a couple of those losses early. But this is a defense that if they can get it figured out, they're slowly getting it figured out. But this is a defense that is still a top 10 defense. They're going to get it figured out. This is a dangerous team.
I'm willing to look really stupid because we're recording this on Monday. Bucks over Lions.
Man, Todd Bowles, and I have been on the Todd Bowles train for a long time. That is one of the best blitz designers in the NFL and really at any level. He has been able, he had some problems last year because the linebackers weren't doing really great. The secondary was kind of falling apart. And then you had really no pass rush. They've been able to kind of manufacture a pass rush. The linebackers are still, Savassier Dennis still will do some things where you're just like, the hell are we doing? But then Jamel Dean is like, he took a pay cut and was like, man, I'm going to prove that you should have paid me because I am a calling I love. Tyke Smith is now playing deep safety with Winfield, Antoine Winfield, when healthy. Again, look, we've been talking about it. It's amazing what happens when these guys get healthy and they all start playing together. But no, and then Baker Mayfield's just on a tear.
Yeah. Now let's go to our division. And I saw you squeeze this in here. No Bowers or Myers for the Raiders. No. The Chiefs just dominated another NFL football team on a Sunday at noon. And it's the Raiders. Their defense is what it is. They were without whomever they were without. But they start, and whether or not whatever happened on these punts or whatever it is, I can't remember if it was like a muff or like bad returns, but the Chiefs ended up getting backed up into their own territory to start the game 16-8, got every yard, and then shut down the Raiders on offense. We're saying it every week now, but they're back, right, Cody?
Dude, it's so crazy. I watched the first two drives, and I literally was like, I will not watch another second of this game.
Dude, I was done. I was just like, all right.
I'm surprised people were even there at the end of the game.
Baby.
Oh, dude, I was like, well, let's see if Geno can get back. And I think I turned it back, and it was like the third drive, got sacked again. I mean, look, I put it in our notes, 10 for 16 for 67 yards. They didn't even try. And I mean, I know they played the backup, but it was just like, bro, this game was over. One of the few times that I've seen in the NFL where it's like this game was over before it even started. You could tell like Rashee Rice was there. You know who really just kind of in that game, the one thing that stood out to me in those first two drives is, man, Travis Kelce is so glad that Rashee Rice is back. And now he only had 3 targets and only had the 3 receptions, but you could tell like he needed to make that play.
The offense, like everybody, again, we talked about it with Caleb Williams getting some of the pressure lifted off of him with DeAndre Swift. The pressure is just gone from, maybe not all of it, but from Travis Kelce, because he's not the guy getting Xavier Worthy back. And it sucks that he's the guy that ran into him and got him hurt in the first play of the season. And then you get Hollywood Brown for a full season this year. You get Rashee Rice back from the injury and the suspension. We have to remember he's coming back from a suspension, everyone. Yes. But at the same time, what do you do? And then you look on defensively. If Chris Jones is cooking, they have a 4-man rush with that. You have to double team him. And then you have Charles Omenihu, George Karlaftis, and Ashton Gelati and Omar Norman-Lott, the rookies that they've drafted this year. As soon as they start to generate a legitimate 4-man pass rush, and I know what logo's on top of my head right now, who is beating them?
Well, and I think too, I think the only way that you give them trouble is if you can go spread on them and be successful.
Mm-hmm.
And the only reason why is because they really don't want to play nickel. They want to play base as much as they possibly can. I mean, they still feel good when they're in there. I mean, Watson looks like he's playing really good.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, they don't mind it, but it's one of those things where they really don't want to play Hicks at a bunch of snaps. And they really want to play with those three linebackers. And you played a team that wants to play a bunch of 12 personnel because, again, they don't have Meyer. They didn't have Bowers. They're just trying to pack it in and give it to Ashton Genty as much as they possibly can. And it just was just a recipe for disaster for Oakland, which, again, everybody hates the Raiders. So sorry if you're listening to this and you're a Raiders fan. Everybody hates you guys, but you already knew that.
So your team, the Denver Broncos, start the fourth quarter down 19-0 to my New York Giants. Yeah,
dude. So funny story. My wife wanted to get one of her favorite bands was playing a concert. So I'm literally at the concert waiting for it to start, watching this second half. And I'm just slowly watching. I'm like, oh, okay, it's getting interesting. As more and more people are starting to pack in, I'm starting to get interesting. I'm starting looking around. I'm like, dude, this game's getting really good. Well, sure enough, it comes down. I'm like, dude, we're going to win. And then what do the Giants do? They go down and they freaking score. And I was like, dang, there's 42 seconds left.
Jackson Dart can play. I know the pick is bad.
Hey, they got one. They got a live one. Him and Scattaboo, they need to keep together for as long as possible.
Even if Scattaboo's got to be the running backs coach by the time he's 28.
Oh, yeah. Well, now he's going to only probably have, he'll get his pension. They'll give him a 4-year. They'll get his 4 years in. I don't know if it'll last any longer than that. But they need to ride that out. That defense is actually really underrated. They need to figure out the corner position. Flott's been playing really good, which is hilarious to say because he's been absolutely horrendous. You know, the Banks kid that they drafted in the first round, I think a couple years ago, and I can't even get playing time. But you've got Nubin and Phillips, who are two of the best little overhangs, man. Those guys can play. And then you've got the three-headed monster inside. They gave people fits. The Denver defense played a lot better than I think. They kind of took advantage of what they did. I thought it was really interesting. They were getting in a lot of 12 personnel, and they were getting a lot of wing sets. So they were having both tight end, basically YY, and they were going basically two receivers opposite. And what the Broncos do is they'll go corner over. And Brandon Jones looked absolutely lost on some of these wing. They were just doing post wheel, and he didn't realize he was in zone, but he forgot I'm not the flat defender anymore. I'm now technically a corner, and I'm not going deep. And they got him on a few of those. I thought they did a really good job of really running it at the Broncos. But look, man, my dad told me that this is the craziest game he's ever seen other than the drive. The drive is the one with the 2-minute drive against the Browns. That was he said that was the craziest. That's number one. He goes, but this in terms of just a regular season game is probably up there. My dad, so I'm watching I have a camera in my backyard. I'm watching the game on the small screen on the bottom. And then I'm watching because I know when we nail this kickoff, my dad's going to blow an Achilles. And so I'm watching it. My two boys, Duke picks up my 6-year-old, my oldest son is 12. Picks up the 7-year-old. They're going crazy. My poor daughter, Annalie, is like, what is going on? The dog can't figure out what's going on. My dad's, please don't fall. Please don't fall.
Anyway, the Broncos suck.
Let's move on. Let's talk about the Chargers and basically their collapse of a defense. I think a lot of people are panicked, but this was predictable.
Goodness gracious. And this is the last time I ever bet the Chargers money line. Ever. The last time I ever do it. Because it is kind of frustrating when you finally see the Chargers do the right thing last year. And then they do the right thing for the first 3 games of this year. It's oh, yeah. No. This is a logo on our helmets. We got to go. We're the Chargers. But, yeah, no, it is ridiculous. But final division that we haven't got to yet, AFC East. We've mentioned it a few times. We're recording this on Monday. Mike McDaniel has not been fired yet. It's only a matter of time. Tua throws back-to-back interceptions on back-to-back drives. Yeah. Well, there's nothing else to do in Miami other than restart it.
Well, and I'll go back. So I've said this forever. This is a meme offense.
Mm-hmm.
A-Chain can only run outside. You have no interior run game, so you have no game control at all. Tua can only throw in the middle of the field. You can't attack vertical. So a lot of teams basically just sit in zone. They play in cover 2, and they figure they look, you're trying to run outside anyway. We're going to play with some hard corners. As long as our corners tackle, we're going to be okay. I go back to the Chargers. The Chargers have kind of turned into, in an essence, almost like a Miami offense where we have no run game. All we're going to do is just let Herbert cook, right? It's kind of like the whole Russell Wilson cook. And then you're like, oh, okay, now,
all right.
Herbert is not the problem. Herbert's good. It's just like you now have passed. Well, and then too, like, it's funny because
he scored on 3 straight drives and got them within striking distance. And so like it's not on him, but they do need to figure something else out.
Yes. And two, like defensively for both of these teams, it's like you knew that the talent wasn't going to be like Minter did such a good job. So why is Minter talked about in almost like a Mike McDonald where, hey, he could be a kind of this young defensive savant who's going to be a head coach next year. Why are they talking about it? Even though, because everybody knows that this roster was piecemeal together and like Minter kind of mitigated. The problem is you're trying to do the same thing and you don't have Poona Ford. Remember last year they were playing with 2 noses. So Anthony Weaver is kind of in that same thing where he was given absolutely nothing on that defense. Like there's a few guys on there that haven't really produced. Like Jalen Phillips looked like, okay, he might be back, but he's had a bunch of injuries. Chubb's kind of in the same way. You're basically with Seiler is your only one. You lose Calais Campbell. I couldn't name you one of their linebackers. I can't name you anybody in the secondary other than Fitzpatrick, who they did the weird corner safety switch. Okay. You let go of Javon Holland, whether you wanted to say it's a locker room situation or not, he's gone. So why are people, and I'm sure outside of Miami, who, they're biased, they don't want, they think defense is terrible, but it's like, why is he up for some defense coordinator jobs along with Minter? Well, it's because everybody knows that they're basically creating at the best opportunity they possibly can with these, and they're still in games. My question to you is, if McDaniel's fired, do you turn to Quinn Ewers? And what does that look like? Because you cannot get rid of Tua until 2027.
Yeah, and I think that's like the why you can't. But also, I think about like your general manager, head coach, and quarterback are all like on the same management level. And Tua has clearly had a huge lapse in management over these last few weeks. You got to move on from him too. I think that is like the if you think about it on that front. He's not taking care of his organization, and also he's bad on the field. So, and then like every time he scrambles, you're having a heart attack as a franchise. Like that is, I know we haven't had to deal with it in like a year plus, but it is like and I don't think you need to be doing that as a franchise. GM's been there forever. Mike McDaniel's not the guy. Quarterback's not the guy.
Total reset. I mean, really, and I'm never an advocate for firing in the middle of the season. I see you. I think you let it play out, but like all the stuff coming out. I mean, Tua kind of said like the quiet part out loud, saying that right. When he was like the team meetings, people don't show up and they're showing in late and there's no accountability. Well, a team meeting, you can't go to the coaches and be like, hey, we had this player only meeting and so-and-so didn't show up. And the coach is going to be like, well,
that's y'all. That's y'all called that.
Right. Yeah. And if you're doing a lot, and like most players will tell you, if you're doing a bunch of player only meetings,
they did it after week 1.
Yeah, that's that's not a good look. I think that has been the MO with McDaniel, though. That was one of the reasons why you heard with Fangio he wanted out, was because he said it was basically just an absolute circus. There was no, the players didn't want to necessarily fall in line. And now you're reaping that. So it's like everything on this screams unsustainable. The offense is unsustainable. You don't have any talent on defense necessarily to kind of, can we win a game 17-14? Probably not. Okay. You're having cultural issues, locker room issues. Your quarterback has essentially he's gotten worse over time. And you're in a division, and we'll wrap it up with this. You're in a division with a Bills and a Patriots that here's the thing. Neither defense is great.
Yes.
But you're not going to be able to outscore them. And if you're not going to be able to outscore them, you're not going to be able to win that division or even come back in it.
And I even also think like this past week, the Patriots beating the Titans, that's just such an emotional win for Mike Vrabel. And that defense played really well in that game. They got a turnover scored off of it. So I think that can be a get-right game for them. But like you're saying, we'll see.
Yeah, I still think the Bills end up winning because I think the best quarterback wins. But if I'm the Dolphins, I'm looking at this right now of just like, look, yeah, the Jets are a dumpster fire, but they're always a dumpster fire. We've been trying to catch up with the Bills, and now the Patriots found a franchise quarterback. I think we can all agree Drake Maye looks legit.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like where do you go? We're in trouble now. But what are we going to do? And it's and to me, it's the only way that you can do this is with a total reset, and then just try and maybe get some of these bigger pieces, like a Chubb, maybe even like a Jalen Phillips. Maybe you can get some draft capital and kind of do a fire sale and get some of these guys off. I mean, even if you got to get rid of Hill. Find a way to get some of these guys, but you have to completely rebuild the O-line. You're going to have to completely rebuild the secondary. I just think that there's just too much. You need a complete reset.
Good God. It's Miami too. Like, people want to play there. How do you suck?
Yeah, you're going to win the free agents like Olympics if you just pay guys. I mean, but I think that's been part of the problem there too, is like just your homegrown talent there. I mean, if you look at their roster, that's been part of the problem. Like, I even think too, a little bit of like Waddle hasn't really been that great.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You have Westbrook. Akine is your other guy. You have Malik Washington, who's been good, but no Tyreek Hill now. Your offensive line has basically just been put, piecemeal together.
Mm-hmm.
Darren Waller randomly.
He's balling out.
He's balling out. He's
bright spot for the
what I mean?
Future moving forward.
And so, like, outside of Devin A-Chain, though, you have basically a rookie in Jalen Wright. Defensively, yeah, you've got your two guys that you drafted this year. I think Kenneth Grant's going to be fine. Jordan Phillips is your nose. Okay, Zach Seiler's good. But Jalen Phillips and Bradley Chubb just have really not been either healthy or are getting the 12, 15 sacks that you thought they were going to be. This is your secondary. And I will end it here because I know you got to go, Felix. But we've got Jack Jones, Dante Trader, who's a 5th-round draft pick. Ashton Davis is your free safety, who couldn't even start with the Jets. Storm Duck, who I like, but is was
better name than player.
Yes. And then you have Minkah Fitzpatrick, who now is playing nickel. To me, it's just that's why Anthony Weaver, if you want to know, Anthony Weaver comes from the Ravens tree. He's highly regarded. That's why he's up for head coaching jobs, is because it's like you're doing something here that should not be possible. And even though you have the 31st ranked defense, it looks like they're at least lining up correctly.
3rd ranked defense.
So it's bad. It's bad. Thanks for joining us again on another Let's Talk Ball. Keep the conversation going, man. Guys, subscribe, rate, and review us. Appreciate it. Felix, have a great day. Make sure we watch some football.